Good evening. I'd like to open the meeting of the February 4th, 2019 Union County Board of Commissioners meeting. And as usual, we'll open our meeting with our invocation, and Commissioner Rushing will lead us, please.
Thank you. Please join me if you will. Lord, we thank you for bringing us all here safely tonight, and pray that you would be with us as we conduct the people's business. In a day and age where many of us bow our heads to seek guidance from our smartphones, it's refreshing to be able to seek divine guidance and your intervention in the decisions that we make tonight. Please let it be pleasing in your sight and to the citizens of Union County. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First, this evening, item 3, public hearing for Project Gold to consider Step 2 economic development. Mr. Manager, if you'd like to.
Commission, we have a public hearing before us. Project Gold is requesting economic incentive grant in support of the purchase and retrofit of a facility in Union County. The Step 2 economic development incentive grant is in the amount not to exceed $115,000 over a 5-year period beginning FY 2022. The company is consolidating the purchase and retrofit of an existing manufacturing facility with a potential value of $5 million. The project would include investment in new process equipment and related building improvements at the targeted facility located in Monroe. And I believe we have Mr. Ron Wood here with us tonight from Economic Development.
Chairman Helms, Commissioners, Manager Watson, it's my pleasure to bring before you tonight an economic development incentive grant request by Duke Sandwich Productions Incorporated, otherwise known as Project Gold. Duke Sandwich Productions is headquartered in Greenville, South Carolina. The company has a 100-year history of producing top quality food products for the private label supermarket and restaurant industries. The company is considering a $5 million investment in an existing 110,000 square foot facility here in Union County. The project includes the purchase and retrofit of a former food production facility at 2701 Simpson Street in Monroe. This location is attractive to the company because of its close proximity to the greater Charlotte market. The facility would be used initially for the production of fresh salads, sauces, spreads, dips, with the addition of other lines as market demand increases. The purchase, renovation, and installation of equipment is targeted to commence as early as second quarter of 2019. A minimum of 10 new jobs would be created, paying an average of $17 per hour. The company has indicated that incentives are a very important factor for the project, and the project is in competition with other corporate locations. Tonight, we're requesting your consideration for a Step 2 Economic Development Incentive Grant in an amount not to exceed $115,000 to be paid over 5 years beginning in fiscal year 2022, based upon the Union County Tax Office's appraised value each year on the company's anticipated investment of $5 million in building improvements and new equipment. Based on this investment and holding all other factors constant, including depreciation, the company would pay estimated ad valorem taxes on the new taxable investment of $182,725 over the same grant period. Of course, actual tax revenue to the county will be based on the current tax rate applied to the assessed value of the investment each year after depreciation. As we do with all of our projects, we run a cost-benefit analysis. This project shows a 1.96 to 1 return for the first 5 years of the project or the grant period, and that increases to a 2.10 to 1 return over the life of the project. We presented this project to the Monroe Union County Economic Development Board of Advisors at their January 15th, 2019 meeting, and they unanimously recommended that we bring this project before you tonight for your consideration. We will also bring the project to the Monroe City Council tomorrow evening, where a similar economic development grant will be requested. Therefore, the Monroe Union County Economic Development Board of Advisors and staff recommend the award of this Step 2 performance-based incentive grant to Duke Sandwich Productions Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $115,000 in order to help secure this $5 million investment. At this time, I'd like to recognize Mr. Jesus Concepcion. He's Chief Human Resource Officer with Duke Sandwich Productions, and he's available to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Ron, the last statement on our documentation says 100,000 instead of 115. Is that a typo?
That must be a typo, because the value of the grant is 115,000.
It's the financial impact. Just if it's a typo, I want to get it corrected. You know?
Okay.
Is that,
Well,
that's for the next item?
Is-
That's for the next item.
Okay, yeah, that's what it is. Okay, good.
Thank you, sir.
We have no one signed up to speak at the public hearing, therefore I'm closing the public hearing. Did anyone miss? I don't think so, okay. Next item we have is a public hearing regarding the appropriation of monies for economic development purposes to the City of Monroe for financial assistance in a natural gas line extension. Mr. Manager, would you like to?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. As part of the settlement letter with the town of Monroe, related litigation between Union County and the town, Union County indicated its support to extend natural gas line and support that extension in an amount not to exceed $100,000. This would assist the City of Monroe financially with the extension of that gas line through the Marshville area. The purpose of the project is to provide economic development benefits to Marshville and other nearby areas of Union County. Access to this natural gas line could provide economic benefits to businesses in the area, as well as promote additional economic development, particularly industrial development. Union County will consider entering into a local interlocal agreement with the City of Monroe to appropriate these monies for the stated purpose. Because this is an infrastructure project with commercial and industrial economic benefits, it is being considered as a project under the Union County Commercial Infrastructure Improvement Grant Program. This will allow program funds received from the county's prior economic development arm, the Union County Partnership for Progress, to be used for these purposes. Because this will be a use of funds restricted for economic development, and such expenditure should be considered an economic development expenditure. The board is required pursuant to GS 158-7.1 to conduct a public hearing on the issue. The financial impact is an amount not to exceed $100,000.
Here's that 100,000. No one signed up to speak. Is there anyone that missed an opportunity to sign up? If not, I'm going to close the public hearing. And we'll move to item 5. This matter is being postponed until the time of additions and/or deletions to the agenda. There will be a recommendation by staff at that time on this item, and the board can take action regarding the recommendation at that time to the additions and deletions are discussed. Okay. Therefore, we'll move on to item 6. I'm going to open a public hearing on CZ 218-004, Twin Lake Senior Living Facility.
Mr. Chairman, this is a request to amend the zoning map of Union County by rezoning a parcel of land of R40 residential 40,000 square foot minimum lot size to R4CZ residential 4,000 square foot minimum lot size conditional district. The applicant requests the rezoning in order to develop the property as an age-restricted apartment facility. The request is for a maximum 70,000 square foot building with no more than 182 units. This would yield a density of 21.7 units per acre. Uses on the site, if approved, would be limited to a 3-story building consisting of living spaces for primarily older residents. The Union County Planning Board considered this item in its January meeting. The Planning Board heard a presentation from the applicant and heard concerns from nearby residents. The Planning Board, after discussing the matter, took a vote, and the motion to approve failed by a vote of 4-3.
Okay, and I think we can recognize Mr. Brian Matthews, or Lee, you going to speak? Okay, sorry.
I have a short presentation for this. Again, as stated in the background information, this is a conditional rezoning request. It is CZ 2018-004 Twin Lakes Senior Living Facility. It's a request to go from the existing zoning of R40, which is residential 40,000 square foot minimum lot size, to a R4 conditional. The request is for a maximum of 70,000 square feet of building area, no more than 182 units. And if this was approved, this conditional rezoning request would be bound by all conceptual plans and conditions approved as part of the process. These are some general pictures of the site. These were taken about a month ago. This is looking at the site from about the roundabout, a little bit further down Beulah Church Road, top left. Top right is standing along Beulah Church Road looking back toward the traffic circle. So that's the traffic circle at Beulah and Waxhaw Indian Trail Road. There's a church and a school across the street over there. This is looking, actually standing in the traffic circle to the south, down the south of Waxhaw Indian Trail Road. Some vacant properties on both intersections there. And then the bottom right picture is looking down Beulah Church Road. The site would be on your right, and on your left a little bit further down is an approved subdivision called Grace Meadows. It's about a 40 plus lot cluster development. There are some nearby municipalities in the area. Again, the white area as shown on the map is unincorporated Union County. And the pink is the town of Weddington, so you can see the town abuts this site to the north. And as you'll see in a minute, it kind of abuts it to the west too, because I'll kind of explain how that works in a second. And then to the south and to the east, it's abutted by the town of Wesley Chapel. This is a map that we use to talk about developed status of these areas. And for the most part, this entire development site is undeveloped. There's not anything on here. It's vacant farmland, there's a couple ponds, and then it's wooded. The existing zoning in the area is all R40 with the exception of a gas station that exists just to the north of this site. I believe it's Nana's Market. It was approved by the town of Wesley Chapel a few years ago, and it's currently in operation. There are a few land uses in the area that are allowed in R40 that aren't necessarily residential. The main one being the church and school at the intersection on the northeast side. The zoning and land use history, this property has been zoned R40 since Union County established zoning. It's never had any other zoning designation. And this is part of the request that you're seeing tonight is a small portion of what you see outlined here. It's an 8-point 3-acre tract, I believe. That's approximately at the corner. The rest of this site is under review currently as a cluster subdivision in the R40 district. It's allowed by right. It's just a staff review. As long as they meet the minimum requirements of the ordinance, it can be approved. The cluster ordinance provisions basically say that the subdivision has to meet R40 density, meaning approximately 1 unit per 40,000 square feet, but they can reduce the lot sizes down to 20,000 and set the balance aside as common open space. Just want you to have that perspective when you're thinking about what's happening on the site. There's a few major environmental features on the property. There is a stream that runs through, not on the rezoning site, but on the site as a whole. There's a stream that runs through this, and then there's some large ponds on the property, which lends its name to the site as Twin Lakes. They are also designated as wetlands and floodplain area. And these are some traffic counts that were done in 2016. So this is the latest information the NCDOT has for this area. So this is the latest information that we're able to ascertain from their website. Just to the east of this, on Beulah Church Road, you can see that there's a traffic count of 1,900 vehicle trips a day. To the south, along Waxhaw Indian Trail, you've got approximately 9,400. And then there's a couple of counts to the north along Waxhaw Indian Trail of 4,800, and then Potter Road of 11,000. The CTP, the Comprehensive Transportation Plan, calls for Beulah Church Road to remain a 2-lane with a paved shoulder. And in the future, it calls for Waxhaw Indian Trail Road to be a 4-lane boulevard with curb and gutter. There's no timeline on that. There's no funding available for actually building that, but it is shown in the future plan. So I can't give you a time horizon on when that might happen, but it is shown in the future plan. And then I think this is the last slide. From a land use plan perspective, this area is shown as single-family residential. The single-family residential area does talk about some limited commercial development that can occur at major intersections. That's one of the things that when staff reviewed this that we took into account, was that we consider this to be a fairly major intersection and that commercial uses could take place. And even though this is not technically a commercial use, it is a higher density residential use, albeit age restricted. It has some similar components to a commercial development. And again, as manager stated, the planning board did consider this item at their January meeting. They discussed it and failed to recommend approval by a vote of 4-3. If anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. The applicant is here, and I believe that there may be some more updated traffic counts in their information at their TIA. I'll leave it at that if there's any more questions.
Commissioner Rushing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Toured one of these facilities in Mecklenburg County, and they had commercial, what could be considered, I guess, commercial uses like barbershop, beauty salon, those types of things. Would those be allowed in this zoning?
It's my understanding that some of the uses that would be on this site are going to be communal dining facilities, which would be allowed. We would look at to be that as an accessory type use to this building, as long as it was just for use of residents. And I think that's the key. You do have certain uses that could be on the first floor of this facility, but they would have to be for use just by those residents to be considered accessory. If you opened it up to the general public, then that wouldn't be considered to be an accessory use.
Well, the families could come
Yeah, families would be fine. If you wanted to come, if you had a grandparent that was at this facility and you wanted to eat with your grandmother or grandfather, that would be considered to be an accessory use.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I would ask maybe a little better definition of what the assisted living is, because there's multiple types, whether they provide medical assistance or they don't or whatever. Can you cover that for?
And my understanding, just from conversations with the applicant, is that this is not an assisted living facility. This is a age-restricted senior living facility, that there will not be any medical staff on site. That's our understanding. I'm sure the applicant can probably add a good bit more to that, but that's our understanding.
Because I'm familiar with, my mother was in a facility like this, and so it piqued my interest, because I used to have to travel an hour across town to visit with her, and there's not a facility like this in western Union County. I think the applicant and myself spoke to, talking about some benefits of being able to help the people, and so I think it is a facility that accommodates our senior. And Stoney said he's already reserved a room for me. So, but anyway, just wanted to clarify that for
Yes,
our audience.
it's our understanding that there's not going to be any medical staff on site.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you. We do have some individuals that would like to speak tonight, and we'll start off with Mr. Estep.
I have a presentation first.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Fine.
I'm sorry. Sorry, this is- Sorry. Members of the board, Mr. Chairman, thank you for hearing us tonight. My name is Mark Keim. I am a landscape architect with Land Design in Charlotte, and I am speaking on behalf of our petitioner, the Moser Group, for this project. I'm not going to reiterate a lot of the points that Lee had made about the surrounding area. This is our conceptual site plan, and just wanted to point out that our points of access will not be off Beulah Church Road or Waxhaw Indian Trail Road. Both of them will become from internal, from the subdivision that is currently being reviewed, that Lee had mentioned, the Twin Lakes subdivision. He had identified the surrounding uses as far as Nina's Market. Across the street, we have a daycare, Arborbrook Christian Academy, and the Central Baptist Church. The two parcels to the south and the southeast are currently vacant. In terms of need for the facility, we feel this provides seniors with an option to, pay one monthly price that allow them to cover most of their expenses while enjoying a number of amenities that are found on site, as well as group activities off-site. Seniors are making up a larger portion of our population, and this type of facility, as mentioned, really doesn't exist in this part of the county. This would give seniors an option to downsize and stay within their region, whereas right now, as you'll see later in the presentation, most the other type of similar facilities in the Charlotte area are in different counties. North Carolina as a whole is aging. Countrywide is aging, and over the past 10 years, we've seen about a 33% increase in people over the age of 65, growing from 37 million to close to 50 million in 2016. That number projects out to almost 100 million by 2060. This type of facility is geared to target a population generally in the age range of 70 to 85. I know it's age targeted 55 and up, but that is the general age of the users of these types of facilities. As far as what's included in the facilities, these are each climate-controlled apartments, extra large bedrooms and closets. Each apartment has its own kitchenette. and a 24 emergency call system 24 hours a day. As mentioned, there will be certain, as Mr. Rushing brought up, there are certain other features that will be included, such as a theater, barbershop, beauty salon, a chapel, a library, card room, amongst other uses inside the facility. Dining services will be provided 3 meals a day, and they'll be served in a restaurant-style fashion. There will be group exercise options, group shopping options, and entertainment options, and housekeeping and maintenance services are also provided. On the outside of the facility, we intend to have an activity lawn on the back side of the building. This lawn will create or contain a number of different uses, whether it's informal and formal outdoor seating, fire tables, some passive recreation such as bocce courts, have some raised planters for gardening. The intent of this area is to be fenced in and to be used for the use of the residents only. The surrounding subdivision that is currently undergoing permitting will also have an extensive network of trails and sidewalks that will be available to the residents. As you can also see here in the southwest corner of the building, there will be pickleball courts that will be provided for both the subdivision residents as well as the residents of this facility. Along the walking trails, we'll have some other passive recreation areas, some informal seating areas, and in between the 2 lakes that make up Twin Lakes, an elevated gazebo style overlook will be proposed on the dam that bridges the 2 lakes together. As far as healthcare options in the region, the 2 fully functioning hospitals as exist today are Novant Health in Matthews. It's about 9 miles due north of the site, as well as the Atrium Health facility here in Monroe. It's about 11 miles east of the site. Currently, there is a future Atrium Health that is being developed at the corner of Stallings Road and Independence Boulevard. That's going to be the closest facility upon completion. That's about 6.5 miles away. We also have 2 urgent care facilities, one that's located at over in Waverly at Providence and Ardrikell. It's about 6.2 miles, as well as the other urgent care facility located on Independence Boulevard, 6.2 miles as well. And there is the closest family medicine practices is due south about a mile in Wesley Chapel. As mentioned previously, we do have 2 other similar facilities in the region. One is Providence Meadows, that is located at Providence and Kuykendall in Mecklenburg County inside 485. That's about 8 miles from this site, as well as Willow Grove, which is about 10 miles due north in Mint Hill. In reviewing, this is the site plan for Willow Grove, existing aerial, and this is the site plan for Providence Meadows. In reaching out to these facilities, one of the things that we have found is that in talking with staff, roughly only 25% of the residents in these facilities still use privately owned vehicles. Some of these facilities have garages, and staff again reiterated that they felt that most of these garages were really used for self-storage of personal items more than vehicle storage. So one of the conditions that we're asking for as a part of this approval is to go through a minor, a minor amendment process that would allow us to provide a certified report that would do a comparative analysis of those facilities to determine how much parking we need. Based on the plan that we have submitted, we feel that we are sitting at about 182 spaces, and we feel like that's probably about 100 spaces too many. This type of report would have to go through staff for review, and again, would just have to be a condition of this approval. I'm here for any questions, as well as Laura Reed, who is our traffic consultant with Kinley Horn, and thank you.
Any questions, John?
How many parking spaces were you going down to?
I'm sorry?
How many parking spaces were you going down to?
We go down to about 83 spaces from the 182 shown.
Versus 180.
But essentially, it would be based off of that document, whatever is deemed based on the comparison.
Any more questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We'll try again, Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. There's 3 or 4 reasons that I came here tonight in support of this. First of all, I think it's extremely needed in that area of the county. Second, I think the applicant will do a fabulous job, just like most everything he's ever done. Third is the convenience. Tonight, I left other side of Weddington at about 5 o'clock, went to see my mother-in-law on that side of the county, and it took an awful long time to get to Brookdale. And it would be a lot more convenient for people, just like Commissioner Helms said, to drive 5 or 10 minutes instead of 30 or 40 minutes. And it would really be a convenience, in my opinion, for that side of the town, and I just wanted to give my support to it. And last, I guess one of the first stages of headed that way, I got my hearing aids in tonight, so I'd like to ask Stoney to reserve me and you a room at it. Thank you all so much.
Next, I got difficulty. Gene, is it Gene? Sorry, sir. Is it Baum?
It is.
Oh, okay, good.
My wife says I can't write either.
Oh, okay, you must be a physician.
No, sir. No, sir. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I live about 2.5 miles from this facility. And ironically, what I do for a living is develop and manage senior adult housing. So I have looked at length, having been in this county as long as I can remember, at various products for senior care, where they should be, what they should provide, and how to make them affordable for seniors that live there. This community, we reference this as being in western Union County. The reality is there's nothing like this in Union County at all. There is some linear residential independent living community. I know that intimately. I was a part of that. But there's really nothing anywhere close to the kind of property that this will provide. I would share to you the emotional side of this for the seniors that live there. Probably 75% of the seniors would be female. They would have lost a spouse over 50 or 60 years of marriage. They would now find themselves emotionally distraught, having lived a life without the spouse they had spent a lifetime sharing life with. That provides for a massive amount of loneliness and misdirection in life and confusion for family. And it makes things like driving and socialization and eating properly and hydrating properly a real burden. Communities like this bridge that gap between a person that is living lonely in their home and moving into a facility where they can have the care they need to extend their life. Statistically, that's 3.5 to 4 years longer if they had the socialization that communities like this provide. There were 3 things that came up as I reflected on what I might say that could be helpful tonight to you that came out of the planning board meeting that I attended. One of the thoughts was, why here? And the reality is, if this facility were placed anywhere further west in Union County, the land cost alone would typically make rental rates so challenging for seniors on fixed income to afford that it becomes a real burden that the people that need it can really get it. The other thing that came out regarding traffic, the correlation here is that most seniors realize they can't hear as well as they used to, they can't see as well as they used to, and their reaction times aren't as well as they used to. They would be the last ones to get in a vehicle at rush hour traffic and go scooting up and down the road. The reality is they are enjoying, about the time that we are driving back and forth, they are enjoying chef-prepared breakfast. And all of us know as we go out into the community and eat breakfast, if there's a good breakfast around, most senior adults can tell you where it is. So they will be enjoying, in facilities like this, a full breakfast at the time when we are commuting back and forth, and would use their transportation needs to occur at times when the traffic is just not as strong. The other question, the final thought that I had relative to EMS was, I reached out to affirm what I had known relative to EMS calls, et cetera, and facilities in this general area would tell you that on average there are 4 EMS calls unless there's an outlying resident that has some challenging issues, but overall about 4 trips per month would be expected out of a facility like this. And then of course the staff in the facility could meet some of those non-emergency needs. So I would urge you to support it. This is the first year statistically that the number of individuals that are 18 and younger is fewer than the population that we have in this county that are 65 and older. So I would encourage you please to support projects like this for seniors, whether it be this project or others like it. We really need to try to start focusing on how we can help those that have helped us for so many years become the people that we are. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Mike Smith.
Mr. Chairman, Board, thank you for this opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Mike Smith, and I'm a councilman for the town of Weddington. I'm here speaking on behalf of the Weddington Town Council. The council opposes this project, the rezoning and the three-story proposed apartment complex. I know that you all have heard the infrastructure issues that we are facing, traffic and school overcrowding the schools. Those are legitimate concerns. We also know that as elected officials, we can't stop development, nor do we want to try to stop development, and we also have to respect the rights of the property owner. However, as elected officials, we need to manage growth the best we can. And the one way that we can do that, the one few ways that we can do that, is through our zoning. And that zoning protects and to ensure that the proper development goes in the right place. And what I'm asking the commissioners to consider tonight is to work more closely with the municipalities in a more comprehensive plan for the county that benefits the county as a whole and the surrounding communities. Sharing ideas of where development should be and the best place for it, where it will maximize the benefit for all. And so I invite you all to hopefully reach out and start working with the municipalities on maybe coming up with some and sharing some ideas. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Mike Hurd.
Mike Head. I am out of Indian Trail, and I'm also on the Indian Trail Town Council. I'll just add a little bit to what Mike Smith talked about. I think we, and I know that a couple of council members have talked to a couple individuals about what we're trying to do on the western side is to form a coalition where we all share information. And as Mike said, I think the best way to control growth is all of us get together and see what there is in neighboring municipalities and share, and let's hopefully work together to continue this growth, but continue smart growth. So with that, again, I think a couple of you have been invited. I think it's a great way to start the process of coming together as a county and working on this together. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Julie Thomas.
Hello, how's everybody doing? I'm Julie Thomas. I was just coming out as a close-by resident, just trying to understand the project and ask some questions, and I was able to go to the planning board session. They did come back with a negative response on this project, and I think a lot of what came out of those conversations was that these are apartments. And I know that there were some questions that were mentioned earlier about the physicians that are available, the staff that has medical training. And I just want to start with reiterating that these are apartments. I know that if a regular developer came along and asked to change from an R40 to a commercial residential building like this, which would house 182 units on 8 acres, everybody would pause and say, really? This touches the town of Weddington. This touches the town of Wesley Chapel, and you want 182 one-bedroom apartments on 8 acres. That they would at least pause. But I know that we put the word senior in front of it, so that kind of changes things. But these are just apartments. There's nobody, none of the staff is trained medically to help anybody if they're having a heart attack, if they're having a stroke, if they need medical assistance. They will be driving at least 6 miles which 6 miles doesn't sound that bad. I don't know if you guys live around here, but 6 miles in this side of Union County is quite a distance, at least 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, depending on when you're trying to get to Stallings, Pineville, Matthews, Monroe. None of those are very convenient. And they mentioned a primary care physician that was within a mile. He's a primary care physician. If one of these residents is having a heart attack or a stroke or something urgent, what's really needed is a helicopter landing pad, some way that someone can really get in there and make a difference for those seniors that are living there. So I just want to clarify, they're apartments, they're not assisted living. And then in the thought process, I hadn't heard until I came into the room tonight, of going from 182 parking spaces, which the planning board gave a negative review on this subject, 2-3 weeks ago, to going down to 80 parking spaces is crazy to me. This is purely independent living. So everyone who is living there has the ability to drive, has the function to go to dinner, to see a movie, to do anything that they want to do. And in this side of Union County, over and over again, I see you guys bending the master plan so that places can get away with changing the rules because they're putting the word senior in front of it. So close by to this, near Sun Valley High School, there's another big giant project that's going to be as big as Brandon Oaks, but they got it through because they said senior in front of it. And right in front of Wesley Chapel Elementary, something really tight, really close together, not R40, got through because they used the word senior in it. Same thing at Cuthbertson High School, right across there. Want to squeeze something in, throw in the word senior. So all the residents that purchased and bought and voted with their own personal money voted and expected R40 zoning and had no idea that something like this would be coming about. And it's really not touched upon very much, but if these residents want to be able to walk to anywhere, they have one choice. One choice, I swear to you, it's one choice. And that's walking to Nina's Market to get a gas station, to get popcorn and a soda. There is no way that they could walk anywhere else. They couldn't cross the street to get to the church because the traffic's so hard. They couldn't walk to a park. They couldn't walk to a movie theater or a restaurant or anything like that. So I understand that they're trying to bring things like that inside the facility, but what came about from the planning board was a lot of conversations about what the price point of these houses and these apartments are going to be. And what was quoted in that session was that the prices would be $1,400 to $4,000 a month for a one-bedroom apartment. So I'm not a math major, I'm a business major. That's a $300,000 house. That's a $500,000 house that these seniors are getting no equity for. So I also just want to question where the taxes are going to be coming from, because this is technically unincorporated Union County that this is being built in. So the people that will be coming to serve and protect the residents are going to be the Wesley Chapel Fire Department. And I'm hoping that they're going to somehow benefit from this project, because the residents are purely renters, so they're not paying the Wesley Chapel Fire Department to come and service them. I'm hoping that somehow along the way money gets brought to them, because Wesley Chapel's already reported somewhere close to a 20% growth in calls last year. So just keep that in mind. There's not a lot of places that they could get medical attention from. There's not a lot of places they could walk to. And it's completely surrounded by R40 zoning. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, ma'am. Mike Como.
Good evening, Chairman. Good evening, Commissioners. Good evening, Ms. West. I'm here representing the Village of Wesley Chapel. We had found out that when this was an issue with the County Planning and Zoning Commission, they asked about Wesley Chapel's position, and we were not represented at that meeting. You've already heard from Weddington, you've already heard from Indian Trail. I wanted to give you our position of Wesley Chapel, which is that we are not in favor of this project. For all the reasons that have already been stated, I don't want to go over them again. This is the first time I've heard that we're going to be reducing the parking spaces from 180, one space per unit, down to apparently less than 80 or around 80. And looking around the room, 65, that's old. That's got to be old. And those people that are 65, those people don't drive, right? Well, it's basically what we're saying here is that 65 is old and you stop driving. And I don't think that's really necessarily the case. It is the highest density we would have in the area. Your own planning board voted against it. Weddington doesn't want it. Wesley Chapel doesn't want it. Indian Trail doesn't want it. The residents have spoke. Now it's in your hands. But the position of Wesley Chapel is we're not in favor. The 10,000 plus cars that drive through the area a day, and that's an undeveloped section of, well, the immediate area. When all the rest of that gets developed out, it's going to be a nightmare. And I want you all to consider that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Courtney Newman.
Good evening. I represent the Cobblestone neighborhood, and at this time, I could go back over what everybody said eloquently against this project, but we are opposed to this project. We cannot find many positives. We know there's a market for it, and we understand that, but we just don't think that is the right spot for it because of all the support vehicles and everything that are going to need to come in to support it, food trucks, cleaning, landscaping, and everything else. We just don't think the area can support it, and like stated before, there's no place for the folks to walk to, the infrastructure and everything else just can't support anything like this at this time. And we just want to let you know that we are opposed to this project. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And that is all that has signed up. Is there anyone we missed? Yes, sir. State your name and where you live, please, sir.
My name's James Brook.
Okay.
And Chairman, the board. I live just around the corner from this place in Cobblestone. I'm the president of the Homeowners Association, been there for 24 years. And when we moved there, we had nothing that we could say, well, we're going to take care of this, we're going to take care of that. There's no sewers. There will be. We were here, not here, but at another meeting about this new sewer line that was coming from Matthews down 12 Mile Creek, or the North Fork of 12 Mile Creek. And I understand, as I see what's going on out there right now, they built a lift station, but when are they going to hook it up? They don't even have the sewer line in yet. Okay? We don't have city water. How many times are we going to have to abandon our wells? We're all on wells out there and septic systems, all right? So what happens when they come around the corner behind my house, which is on the corner of the North Fork of 12 Mile Creek, and it's solid rock? Guess whose wells are going to go bad? And this is not really part of this project, which is way out of scale for what they're proposing. Besides the old junkyard that used to be there, has there been any soil tests done yet? I know there's a bunch of oil down there in that ground, right there behind that gas station. And they tried to cover it all up. So, you know, you guys are, I understand you've looked at this thing from all different angles, but I just think it's out of place. The gas station that's got in there somehow, I think that fella just was a lot smarter than a lot of people. I had my commercial zoning, and I kept doing it, even though the junkyard wasn't there anymore. So here he's got a gas station now, whoever. But the answer to the whole thing is, everybody said about the senior citizens. I'm 82 years old, and I really couldn't give a damn if they built an apartment next to my house if I had to live in it. But you're talking about people that are going to be coming from who knows where to live in this apartment building that, you know, I've seen a lot of these. I'm in the landscape business. I've seen a lot of these different types of units that for retired folks. And maybe one day I'll retire, but I doubt it. But I just think that the whole thing is, it's not right. It's not right at that corner. And now they've got $500,000 houses going up on the other side of the street. And now down at the other end of Beulah Church, I don't know what's going on down there. They just been moving a whole lot of rock and dirt. But anyway, I just think the whole thing is out of place. And they, you know, if they want to build this thing somewhere else, that's fine. But you see a lot of these places going up all around, like Ballantyne, that area. And I travel the county, all the counties, Mecklenburg and Union. And I see these things going up, but they're going up in an area that's already high density to begin with. And like this lady said, how are these people going to walk anywhere? They walk around in a circle around that building. That's as far as they're going to go. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time. Okay, with no other speakers, I'm going to close the public. Yes. Yes, sir.
I know several of you mentioned about the parking spaces and how did that come about. When I went to the facility and toured it to see what we were actually talking about, I was impressed with a lot of things. The movie theater is in the facility. The weight room, the gymnasium is in the facility. The doctor's office, they have office spaces for doctors and for physical therapists in the building. They have a kitchen where they eat 3 meals a day and it's paid for in the rent. They have laundry rooms. They don't have to go do laundry anywhere. People wash their bed linens. They clean their rooms for them. So it provides a lot of jobs along with other things. But the parking spaces specifically is when we got there, there was nobody there, and it was in the morning. It was breakfast time. The people that were there were either in bed or eating breakfast down and look. You know, you go to see a motorcycle gang with their motorcycles lined up the wall. These folks had their walkers lined up the wall. Really impressed me of how they did. There's no cars in the parking lot, none. And I said, why would you put 180 parking spaces in a place like this with no cars? And he said, because you require it in your zoning. You require 1 parking space per unit. And so I'm the one that asked, why would you put 180 parking spaces in a place where there's no vehicles? So that might answer where that came from. I would encourage the folks that are against, especially the town leaders, to go and tour the facility on Highway 16. It's right down the road from you. You can see what I'm talking about. You can see what I saw. It was an incredible facility, very nice, well-maintained, and I would encourage you to take a look at it before you pass judgment.
All right. Any other comments? Okay, I'll close the public hearing. Next, item 7, CZ 2018-003 Weddington Road Wedding Venue. Mr. Manager.
Mr. Chairman, this is a request to amend the zoning map of Union County by rezoning a parcel of land from R20 to RA40CZ. The applicant requests the zoning in order to develop the property as a wedding venue. Uses on this site, if approved, would be limited to a new 5,000 square foot building to house weddings. The existing house would serve as a bridal changing area and parking lot. Since this is a conditional rezoning request, the district is bound by all conceptual plans and conditions approved by part of this process. The Union County Planning Board considered this item in its January 2019 meeting. The Planning Board heard a presentation from the applicant, as well as some concerns from nearby residents. The Planning Board deliberated the issue and ultimately made a unanimous recommendation to recommend that the Board of County Commissioners approve the rezoning request with the conditions that the facility only be used for weddings and that the 5,000 square foot building shown on the plans be constructed as a permanent building and not as a temporary or permanent tent.
Okay, we'll open a public hearing, and we have a number of individuals that would like to speak after we hear from Lee.
Okay, I have a brief presentation for this one as well. As the manager stated, this is a conditional rezoning request. The property is currently zoned R20, and the applicant has requested to rezone this property to RA40 conditional to allow the site to be used as a wedding facility. If approved, uses on site would be limited to 5,000 square foot building to house weddings. The existing house would serve as a bridal changing area, and then there would be a parking lot. And since this is a conditional request, this district would be bound by all conceptual plans and conditions approved as part of this process. This is conditional rezoning 2018-003. May be familiar with the property. As you're heading out Weddington Road, I'll start Weddington Road. I'll start kind of looking at the pictures on the top right here. This is the radio station that if you're headed toward Weddington, on Weddington Road, it's off to the left, just outside the city of Monroe, right before you get to the intersection at Rocky River Road. So radio station, there's some fairly large towers. Directly across the street, I'll go back over here to the top left. This is the house that's on the property that the applicant has proposed to use as the bridal changing area. Excuse me. This is looking down Weddington Road toward the intersection with Rocky River. Of course, Rocky River is a little bit further down, so you can't see it. But this is looking west, and in the bottom right picture is going down Rocky River, or Highway 84, going east toward Monroe. You have one nearby municipality, and that's kind of a satellite annexation. City of Monroe has some jurisdiction at the corner of Rocky River and Highway 84. That southwest corner, there's a gas station presently on that site. A little bit further north, that's Rocky River Elementary School. You're familiar with that on Rocky River Road? And then at one time, there was an approved conditional district that the City of Monroe had. I believe this was going to be a Harris Teeter and mixed-use community kind of behind that. The vesting on that, I believe, has since expired through the city. Zoning still exists, but vested rights have expired, so they would have to go back through that process. That'd all be through the city. The rest of this area is an unincorporated Union County. Again, this shows, based on the development plans for the area, this to be an underdeveloped property. You have a lot of developed properties back here and a good number of undeveloped property. The undeveloped properties are mostly farmland and heavily treed tracts. And again, the vast majority of the zoning in this area just happens to be either R20 or RA20, which is a half-acre minimum lot size. You do have some R40 zoning with the City of Monroe and some conditional district and business district zoning closer to the intersection of Rocky River. There's no major environmental features directly on this property. There is a stream on the property behind this, but on the property itself, there's no major environmental issues. As far as the utilities in the area, I'll get to this transportation slide in a second. Some of the properties in the area are served by Union County Public Works. Some are served by the City of Monroe. This property is not. This property is served mainly with a septic system. And as far as the wedding venue facility itself, the applicant has gone through environmental health and has had a system designed to meet his requirements. So we have an approval from environmental health to do that. We didn't want to bring that to the board without knowing whether or not a septic system would serve the size facility he was asking for. In terms of transportation, a couple traffic counts in the area. One just on 84, just to the east of Rocky River, about 10,000 vehicle trips a day, and one just to the north of the intersection along Rocky River at 8,800 vehicle trips. This is both of these roads are considered in the future cross section CTP 4-lane roads divided with curb and gutter. Land use plan considers this to be a mixed residential neighborhood that generally anticipates a more dense pattern of development with some interspersed commercial uses. Staff's looked at this and felt that this wedding facility would be a good fit within that mixed residential category. And as stated, the the planning board did consider this item at their January meeting. They did have 2 recommended conditions, so they recommended approval with 2 conditions. And those 2 conditions were that the facility only be used for weddings. That item was actually stated in the applicant's letter of intent, where they talked about what the facility was going to be used for. I think the planning board felt they wanted to reiterate that as a condition. And the applicant talked about the 5,000 square foot building being either site-built or a permanent tent. And the planning board felt that a site-built building would be more appropriate in this area. So they've made their recommendation for approval based on those 2 conditions. So if those are conditions that the board would want to see, we'd have to get the applicant, it would be an agreement between the board and the applicant to place those conditions on the rezoning. And within the letter of intent that the applicant provided, there were also some things, and I think that was in your agenda package, but there were some things that the applicant talked about, that the operation days would be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, typically from 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. The intended use is for wedding parties of no more than 200 guests. Parking lot, that's what the parking lot is sized for, and that's what the septic system was designed to handle. And they will allow the serving of wine, beer, and other non-alcoholic products, and no distilled spirits would be allowed. So all those things, excuse me, all those things would be conditions that are self-imposed by the applicant, which would go on the conditional rezoning. If anybody has any more questions, that's the extent of my presentation, but I'll be happy to answer them.
I've got one question.
Yes, sir.
Is there restrictions on lighting since there's going to be parking for these individuals?
You could place additional restrictions on lighting, otherwise they would just be subject to the minimum requirements of the ordinance. The ordinance would require that, I believe if the lights are over what is considered pedestrian scale, which is basically, I believe the ordinance says 20 feet, then you would have to do a lighting study that showed that there was no light spillover above half a foot candle onto adjacent properties, which is a fairly high standard when looking at other ordinances around the area, a high standard for the applicant to meet. If all the light fixtures in the parking area were below 20 feet, then they would be allowed.
Okay.
But that is something that, of course, the board could talk to the applicant about if there was a concern about lighting.
Okay. Any further questions? We have several individuals signed up to speak, and I apologize. The first one, is it Hal? Or NAL? Just 3 initials? Okay. How about Sean? Sharon, I'm sorry.
That's fine. Good evening, Chairman Helms and fellow commissioners. My name is Pastor Sharon Covington Edwards, and I am the station manager for WDEX radio station, which is right across the street from the proposed wedding venue. We are against the wedding venue being there simply because 84, I travel it daily, 7 days a week. It is extremely busy. In turning in to where the radio station is, I can't even count the number of times that I've almost been hit in the back turning in with signal on. To have a wedding venue there, we are already having difficulties with people turning in our driveway. We have had to re-gravel numerous times. Our concern is with the wedding venue, and even though they're saying they're going to have parking, we don't want the overflow in our driveway. We have had huge trucks come in, school buses come in, cars come in, and it is just starting to be a problem. I'm also concerned about the noise. I really don't think that is needed in the area, considering that there is housing around. In my research, what I found that there are already 8 wedding venues here. The closest one to this venue, across the street from the radio station, is 3 miles, which is the Victorian Crow's Nest right there on Franklin Street. So to have another wedding venue that close, I don't think that that is really necessary nor needful. So my concern would be the overflow of parking that would subsequently may end up in our parking lot. And then that will be another added expense to our already tight budget there at the radio station. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Ladora McCurt. Did I butcher that?
Thank you. It's Ladera McCanyon. I actually live in Willoughby Woods, but we're technically part of Seven Oaks. And I was at the planning meeting that this gentleman was talking about earlier. And our big concern, too, is having a wedding venue in our neighborhood. I'm like the 3rd house down in that neighborhood. I'm concerned about the noise. I brought up the condition about having a tent out there, and now they're saying they're going to put a building. But they're only proposing 50 parking spaces for 200 people. That's not considering catering being brought in, those vehicles, any kind of equipment or anything they've got to bring in there, where they're going to have live bands or everything. And I know they're saying Saturday and Sunday, but I work Monday through Friday, so Saturday and Sunday, I'm at home. And I don't want to hear a bunch of music or anything. That parking this lady was talking about, that overflow is going to come down Willoughby Woods Road as well, because there's nothing to keep them from parking on the side of the roads down that street. I'm concerned about, I have grandchildren that come and visit. If alcohol and beverages are being served, I'm concerned about the safety of my grandchildren. I'm totally against this being in a residential area. There is one, as she said, is the Crow's Nest, and when you go around that corner, you can hear the noise from that wedding venue. If you go into the Food Lion, you can hear the noise from there. I definitely don't want to have it in my neighborhood, and I am totally against this project. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, ma'am. John McCain.
Chairman, Commissioners, appreciate your time. I'd like to give it a little texture. Up until March, I was involved with the Fortune 50 group as a business and operation consultant. And I'm going to take the numbers that were tossed at us a little bit earlier today just rather quickly. You can see where the traffic builds on 84 heading west. And by the time you get to the 11,000 that's coming off of Potter Road, from 6 to 9 a.m. and 3 to 6 p.m., that's 6 hours, 25% of a day. 25% of the day, you're going to see approximately 8,250 cars. That's just 25%. If you could imagine sitting at any intersection or any driveway and seeing 23 cars a minute, that's what we're talking about, just to give you a little different perspective. And these are 2016 numbers. You have 3 schools, Union Academy, Benton Heights, and Rocket River Road. We've had 2 traffic officers hit in traffic. Now, I attended the planning meeting, and I brought that up, and I'm happy to say that we've never seen, and never has it been more welcome, county deputies out. And if anybody would just do diligence to follow up what that has rendered the last 30 days, I think it would be a surprise. We are opposed to this wedding venue. There are a number of people here last meeting with the planning board, and the elderly couple spoke of how they have adjoining properties. And again, the concern is the noise, and then the thing of alcoholic beverages being served. We're not opposed to growth. And I think that with what's been done at the airport and other places that are close to where we live, I mean, there's a lot of, I did be commended. But to be holistic in the approach, I'm not saying that we're not, but when we're looking and scrutinizing whether or not a wedding venue needs to be in a residential area where the residents are vehemently opposed to it. We could have had 20 people here today, but that wasn't our approach. We all have talked, we all had kind of got an idea of what the desire was, and it's my job to do the best job possible to present that to you. It's an old neighborhood. You heard about the woods, you heard about farmland, those sorts of things. We're going to have to come abreast with what's current, and I understand that. We're going to have to get into stride of progress and with that change. A real concern I've had is that we're not specific enough in terms of what the conceptual plans are. We say a building. Well, it was proposed that it was going to be a tent. We don't have any idea what that's going to manifest itself into before it's over with. But we do know that as we move forward with the development of our community, Willoughby Farms is a gated community, and there are multi-million-dollar homes there. And I've had a lot of conversation with those folks in dialogue. It's not just Willoughby Woods, it's not just Serenity Hills, it's the entire area. They are just opposed to it. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Ed Cosbrook.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I just found out about this project tonight, 5:30, and I'm opposed to it. I'm on the back side of it. I can hear traffic. One thing is the noise. At 8 o'clock at night, I can hear the traffic from 84. I pull out of that, and I commend you getting pictures without traffic on that. I've never pulled out without traffic. I don't know how you did it or when you did it, but you did good. But being a residential, we like it there. It's quiet. It's I mean, it's a great neighborhood. This venue, I bless them for taking the opportunity, you know, for them to have the opportunity to do what they want to do. It's just in the wrong area. I'm concerned about, I thought you said that they would be self-monitoring a little bit when it comes to the alcohol and the beverages, that the applicant would be self-monitoring this?
I believe what I stated was that anything that was in the application would become a condition of the application if it was approved. Any alcoholic beverages would of course have to apply with any local and state ABC laws.
I'm just concerned about, and I've been to weddings and I know how they get going, I'm sure everybody does. We all go to have a good time. I'm concerned about that area having a good time in response from officers or anything if something happens. Who's going to be monitoring it? It's in a quiet residential area. It doesn't get the, and I'm sure it's going to be in the backside behind the house, but it's just not a good area for it. I just don't see it. I'm concerned about the facility when they say a 5,000 square foot facility, 200 people, 5,000 square foot, and this is in the planning and the zoning, but you're talking about catering. Well, I haven't been to any venue that didn't have some sort of kitchen, so I'm sure that's going to be on the radar for you. There's just so many questions that I have that I'm sure has been handled, but I just, like I said, I just found out about this tonight. I'm totally against it, the way, at that area. I mean, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That's all we have listed to speak. Any comments?
I do have a question. Maybe you can answer this. What are the allocated parking spaces?
It's one space per 4 people. So the facility is designed for 200 people.
So 50 parking.
50 parking spaces, yes, sir.
Any other questions?
Is the applicant here?
Huh?
Is the applicant here?
Is the applicant here? Okay. Would you like to address any of these questions?
Yeah, in general, I guess. Mr. Chairman, member of the board. Yeah, I mean, we applied, and the basic of our application is we will comply with all the ordinances and the noise laws and lighting, and I mean, we don't want to put anything that's going to be a nuisance for the neighbors. There was talk about the facility itself, and at this point, we have not defined it, but it will comply with whatever rules and regulations we have to abide by. It will be enclosed, it will have doors. No, I didn't go to the expense of hiring a architect or drawing minutely developed plans at this stage, because I don't know, is it going to be approved or not? And I also understand that you have the power to pose conditions on your approval, if it's approved. So, it's, I'm a businessman. I might say, okay, I'll have to spend the money to comply with what you're saying, or it doesn't work from a business perspective. Now, the fact that there are another 8 venues in proximity to this area, well, you have gas stations across the street from each other, and they still stay in business. So, now that's, we consider that it's a good business opportunity. Again, we don't want to be a nuisance. We don't want to affect people's livelihood or life conditions. So it's in your hands. And I'll be happy to answer any other questions you have.
Commissioner Akers.
Where would you propose that all these cars park?
Well, I mean, I have space to put 150 parking lots. They just told me you need 50 parking lots for 200 people.
So are you going to only put 50 parking spaces, or are you going to make a larger park?
I mean, if you tell me I need more spaces, I mean, I have 5 acres, so.
Yeah, I mean, short of having your bride and groom say they need to carpool their guests, I don't see how you're going to park 50 cars at a wedding. I mean.
Oh yeah, as I said, I draw 50 spaces because that's what I was told to do.
You have room for additional.
I have 5 acres, yeah, I can put additional.
Any other questions? I'll just make a statement that my expectation is I want to know what the building's going to look like. I want to know what it's made from. That's what we do in most all of our conditional rezoning.
Oh, I understand, yeah.
I would expect detail of what you're planning on building and what it looked like.
Sure, I'm going to be told
Okay.
what I can, I cannot build, so that's what I'm going to do.
Okay.
Thank you.
You, sir. Appreciate it. With no other speakers, I'm going to close our public hearing. And next, we have our informal comments. And informal comments, each speaker must address the board from the lectern and begin their remarks by giving their name, stating whether they're residents of Union County, indicating the municipality which they reside, if any, and stating the topic about which they intend to speak. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to make their remarks. A speaker may not yield any of his or her time to another speaker. Speakers may not discuss matters which are subject to public hearings, and they must be courteous in their language and presentation. Yes, sir. Nathaniel? Yep. You're first, sir.
Nathan Haley.
Okay.
I live in Wingate, North Carolina. I am a resident of Union County, naturally. I come to speak on behalf of the Union County NAACP concerning the increase in price of the Ag Center. We've used the Ag Center for a number of years as a venue for we are a nonprofit organization who are volunteers in your schools, who are taxpayers, and at our last venue, I think Mr. Russian was one of our guests. But we were informed in January by our treasurer that the price had almost tripled to what we were paying. And as a nonprofit organization who gives scholarship to kids and are part of your community, we kind of thought that was outrageous, and we wanted to see the reasoning behind such an increase when our tax money helped to build that building. So it is our concern that the cost that we're having to pay, we would be unable to use that venue. But we have scheduled it for this year because we did have somebody to come in and say they would pay the extra money for us so that we could make a profit to give out our scholarships and still work in your schools as volunteers and have money to pay our assessments to the national and to the state NAACP. So, any questions, I will try to address them. If not, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I thank you.
Thank you. Next is Jimmy.
I yield.
Okay.
To the next.
Loretta.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chairman Helms and the Board of Commissioners. And Mr. Watson, I'm glad to finally meet you. And thank you, Lynn, for the help that you've been to me over the phone. My name's Loretta Melanson, and I live in the city of Monroe, 2923 Meadow Creek Lane, and I'm also a Union County resident. Most of you know me as the founder and active participant in Litter Busters. Well, I'm here as Loretta, the citizen of Union County and of the city of Monroe. I'm very distressed about a growing problem, and I want you to know, Union County, we have a serious problem that's getting worse and not better. I brought an example of, and this is a small example of what I've been working against for the past 2 to 3 months. I spoke with DOT because these signs were going up by this person attached to stop signs at almost every large intersection in the area of Union County that I traveled the most. At home, I have 90 of these things. I've collected them once, they put them back up, I've collected them a second time. I think that the people at DOT have finally talked to this person and he realizes it is illegal and he could be fined. So, I got ahead of the game with Gene. Now, this person, same thing, buying your house. But now that Gene's gone, whoever this is has taken over. I became aware of these signs at the entrance to our hospital on Friday when I had a test run. And as I went home along 74 and then all the way into Matthews, there were a smaller version of this. I have 50 of them in a crate in the back of my car. They were too heavy to carry in here. 50 there. This is 15 of the larger ones. These were covering every corner from, I started at Morgan Mill. My husband drove me on Sunday, and I collected 5 signs at every red light all the way to Rocky River Road. Now, I know this is illegal, but I don't know the codes. I don't know if the county has something to say or if it's DOT, but I'm here to help. So please have the appropriate person call me, and we'll work on this together.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lord. And that concludes our speakers on informal comments. Next, we'll address additions, deletions, and/or adoption of the agenda. And I'll go back to the item that item 5 that we postponed. Mr. Manager, if you'd like to address that.
Mr. Chair.
Staff is recommending removal of this item as well as item number 37 from tonight's agenda. We will re-advertise and place this item on your next agenda.
Okay. Are there any other additions, deletions to the agenda?
Motion to approve as amended.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have our consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent.
Okay. Discussion? All approved?
Aye.
Okay. Next item will be old business, item 35, the Union County Water Line Extension Assessment.
Mr. Chairman, the capital improvement program is adopted by the Board of County Commissioners. It includes an allocation for water system rehabilitation and replacement. This is a topic that has been discussed by the board at its last meeting. It includes water system analysis and evaluation. The project evaluates the feasibility of extending water lines in Union County. The scope of this project is identified by the task order that's been attached. It's been reviewed by Union County Public Works engineering staff. It's appropriate for the project. The services to be provided in a not-to-exceed basis in the amount of $93,657, and the money is available in the adopted capital improvement program for this project. The Union County Waterline Extension Assessment to support the engineering services is described in the task order.
Okay, Aubrey, you want to share some information with us?
Yes, good evening, Commissioners. I'm very pleased to bring this item to you tonight. I know it's something that y'all have been waiting for. So hopefully it's a very brief presentation, and I'm here to answer any questions that you might have. Just to give just a very brief overview of this project and its origination, we as staff were requested to come up with a project to evaluate the short water line extension program. The short water line extension program was initiated in 2012. And we've seen some pretty robust interest that has far outstripped the funding of that program. And so we were tasked to identify, evaluate, and prioritize options for extending our water system, which is shown on the map on the right, extending water lines to existing residents and trying to make water service more available to the county. Again, brief overview, like Mr. Watson mentioned, we issued a request for qualifications, and staff have made a selection of Wooten & Company. The estimated time to completion once we've executed the contract is 7 months, but not to exceed contract of $93,657. Just a very brief overview of what we expect to accomplish with this project. The very first phase is an investigation phase. Staff will be providing data and information to Wooten for them to analyze and move forward with the project. Working with the board will be developing that water extension policy, those alternatives, and trying to prioritize those. Also included in this project is to establish those planning level costs and a way to implement this project, hopefully developing discrete projects that we can move forward with in phasing. There will be meetings with the Board of Commissioners engagement throughout this project, and obviously at the end we'll have a final presentation and a final document. So what we're requesting tonight is board to authorize the county manager to execute this contract pending legal review. So the next step after that, staff will be working diligently to get that contract finalized so that we can have our kickoff and provide information to Wooten for them to get started. So again, we know that this is of interest to you, and we're excited to get started. That's all I have.
Can I ask a question, please?
Sure.
Short line extension, you've heard me call it the Coles method.
I have, yes.
You get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and you get first in line, you get first service. I've disagreed with it from the get-go. What kind of parameters are you going to give Wooten in evaluating this? I mean, is it health and safety?
So that's
Or-
really what we're looking the board to provide that direction. What are those policy objectives and what is the prioritization? Is it health and safety the first priority, and I'm not sure what other ones might be, but yes, that we're really looking for that board direction, staff, and then we'll then run with that direction.
Commissioner Akins.
Can I suggest then that we have a joint meeting with these folks so that we can discuss this and come up with what our inputs are going to be? So that you have clear direction to go and give Wooten? Versus y'all going out to Wooten and then coming back and telling us what they did, and then we've got 5,000 questions?
I definitely understand. So the first task is for staff to provide the base data, the system information, our current policies for them to digest. But then the next step would be to come and interact with the board, and again,
Okay, so that is scheduled then?
Yes, there are
Okay.
periodic check-ins with the board anticipated in this project.
Periodic check-ins, or is it going to be an
Engagement.
upfront
And
engagement?
upfront, yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Akins, if I may, staff has been discussing this week the need for a retreat with the board, specifically to discuss public works issues and get direction specifically from the board on projects like this. We are currently targeting the end of February. Those details are being worked out currently. But this topic is important to you, is important to us, and I think that would be the venue for you to get all the information you need to give us the appropriate direction.
Fair enough.
Any other comments?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, under new business. To hire Mr. Wooten? Yes, we do. Does it, I have a motion?
Motion to accept the scope of services shown on the tax order 2018-01 with Wooten and Company in the amount of $93,657 and authorize county manager to approve the agreement pending legal review.
Okay. Any discussion?
Yeah. So what are they going to do for this $93,000? Is this just to engage them? Are they going to start something and then we get into, I mean, what are we getting for $93,000?
You're getting an overview of what it's going to take to extend these water lines throughout the county.
How do they know what it's going to take if we haven't given any direction?
They'll be getting, would you like to, I'll rebut.
So it's a high-level planning effort. There won't be any detailed design work. They won't size pump stations or lines or that kind of effort for us. It'll be a high-level overview planning based on the direction we provide.
They can begin work by collecting the data from Public Works that we currently have. But I do believe that before as they make this study and as they consider all the options, that again, that input from you toward the end of February will be critical to that, and they won't be anywhere close to finish with this project before they get your input.
So this is not going to exceed $93,000?
Correct. What you're authorizing tonight will not exceed $93,000.
But we don't know what we're going to do in this study, so how do we know? How do they know they can do this work for $93,000? Because they don't know what we want them to do.
They do understand the general context of identifying projects, essentially running lines where board direction is dictating based on some of the raw data that we'll be providing to them. Things like contaminated well information, where current water lines are, obviously, and again, the policy and previous short water line extension applicants, for example. So they can digest all that information and provide guidance. They understand that this project is a little bit fluid, that the direction may change where they're going, but again, with a maximum of $93,000.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Aubrey, this request actually came from Public Works, didn't it? I mean, or this study was initiated by Public Works, wasn't it?
We've issued the request for qualifications, but this was at board direction that we've undertaken this project. We did bring up the issue of the current short water line extension program to make the board aware of that backlog of projects. And then this was a result of that.
Well, Mr. Manager, the direction that the county's talking about was some outside help. Would he be able to do this?
You're talking about Mr. Barry Gullett.
Yes.
We're engaging Barry to work specifically on this type project and also to facilitate that meeting at the end of February. Michelle, do you have any other things you want to add to that?
I do not believe in my discussions with Mr. Gullett that he would be equipped in his consulting business to do this type of work specifically. He is able to do facilitation and to be a conduit, if you will, between the board and the engineering firm, but he would not be suitable for this type of work.
In terms of delivering the same engineering that's required of this task?
Correct.
My question would be, are we premature tonight instead of knowing what we come out of our retreat with? Because, like Commissioner Akins said, our requirements may be a lot more than $93,000, or it might be a lot less. So I don't.
Well, to address that, if we change the direction we provide to Wooten, we can bring that price down to not to exceed based on time and materials expended. So if they spend less time on it, it would cost less. If the expense goes over the $93,000, we can always execute another task order.
That's what one of my problems is. We keep adding task orders. I'd rather do it appropriately up front and know what the expectations are. Commissioner Rush.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If y'all will remember, this came from our staff brought us some options before. $60 million would cover the main and secondary roads. To cover more roads, it went up in price. Then to cover every road in the county, it went up even more. So what this is to find out where we're at, so when we go to our retreat, we can make some more cost level decisions of whether it's feasible, whether it's not feasible, what kind of costs we're looking at. So this is something that we voted before because we need to understand for our information what we're going to do, or if it's feasible or not, cost-wise. And I think with the amount of money that we're looking at and with the scope of this project, we need that information. It was recommended by staff. The hydraulics, if you remember Mr. Kosecki talking about the hydraulic needs, I guess you would need water towers at certain places, the ability to push water, and he was saying the engineering firms would have to be able to tell us that. That wasn't something that they could do, I guess, in-house at the time. Y'all gave us cost estimates, but you didn't give us, it was very rough cost
That's
estimates,
right.
was what I remember.
That was just a high-level GIS
Right.
kind of desktop analysis.
Now,
well, excuse me, Commissioner Rushing, to be clear, this report would not be ready for the
that was my question.
for the retreat in the end of February. If the board wishes to wait to engage until after the end of February when the board's given direction, assuming that the board will have a retreat, it's a 7-month time frame from the beginning of the project to the end of the project before we have a finished product.
Okay. And again, I felt like we've approved this once or twice already. So I'll withdraw the motion if everybody would like to wait until we have the retreat. I'm fine with that.
I make the motion to table it until we have the retreat and find out what we need so that we can task them with what direction we want to go.
Any discussion on that motion?
Is there any timetable on this that we have to approve this by?
No, I would just say there'd be the delay of having to renegotiate the scope and fee and then bring it before the board.
So do we have to, okay, with what we decide at the retreat?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All in favor of tabling? Thank you, Aubrey.
Aubrey, I would ask, it would be nice if these people could come to our retreat and tell us what we're buying and what we could expect to get.
Okay, I can reach out to them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, item 37 we removed and that takes us to county manager's comments.
What about
What
item
about number
36?
36? Under new business?
36.
Yeah, you're right. Item 36, consideration of economic development. I should have heard Chris tighten it up out there on that one. Development grant award to confidential company.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion. We consider an award of a Step 2 Economic Development Incentive Grant to a confidential company, which I think it's not confidential anymore, not to exceed $115,000 over a 5-year period beginning in FY 2022. Authorize the county manager to approve an agreement with confidential company, not confidential any longer, pending legal review.
Any discussion?
Aye.
I have a question and a comment, and I hate to put the human resources, I don't want to put you on the spot, okay? My comment is, we certainly appreciate your interest in Union County and are excited about the potential to have you here. My question is, did I hear it mentioned fresh products, fresh food products, correct?
Yes.
Do you have any specific sources for your raw material? Do you know where that comes from in particular?
So yes, we actually, a lot of our sources are from Atlanta, but we also have sources here in the Monroe area. So that's why it just makes sense to bring our business up here.
Sure. Well, thank you.
Okay. All in favor of approval?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now Mark will try it again.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, 2 weeks ago I met with each of you to discuss the current reporting structure of the elements of Union County government that report to and through the county manager. As you are aware, for the 19-year period from 1994 to 2013, Union County operated with a flat reporting structure where as many as 30 individuals reported directly to the county manager. During this period of time, our population grew by tens of thousands, and the manner and types of services that we provide changed significantly in complexity. In an effort to reduce the number of direct reports to the county manager and to improve the efficient oversight into day-to-day operations, the organization was restructured in 2013. While making this change achieved many of the intended purposes, it had its challenges. Tonight, I would like to share with the board that effective Tuesday, February the 5th, I will be realigning the reporting structure of the organization. The purpose of improving the reporting structure is to make Union County government more open, more effective, and more accountable. This is being accomplished without adding any additional full-time positions, and I have met personally with everyone that will be impacted directly and indirectly by the changes in the reporting structure. For the first time in 25 years, the Union County Manager's Office will begin operating with a staffing complement of a deputy county manager and 2 assistant county managers who will have operational responsibility and authority. Organizing the county manager's office in this manner is very similar to the reporting structure currently in use by other local governments across the state of North Carolina. I'd like to recognize 3 individuals tonight. Effective immediately, Michelle Lancaster is promoted to Deputy County Manager and will act as manager when I'm not available. In addition to her current role overseeing our Human Services Agency, she will lead our strategic communications efforts and oversee IT as well as our tax and financial operations. Brian Matthews, that you're familiar with, Brian, is promoted to Assistant County Manager and will have the responsibility for our regulatory departments, building code enforcement, environmental health, zoning, planning. His responsibilities also include public works and the following internal services, fleet, and facilities. Michael James, Michael, you're familiar with Michael. Michael is also promoted to Assistant County Manager and will have the responsibility for our resident service departments, including parks, recreation, libraries, soil conservation, cooperative extension, 911 communications, emergency management, and the fire marshal. And I was remiss in Brian's responsibility. Solid waste will be also reporting to Brian. Julie Broom, Director of Human Resources, and Jeff Crook, our General Counsel, will be reporting directly to me. After this meeting, an email announcement will be sent to all of the employees in the county, and tomorrow morning emails will be sent to all municipal administrators, community partners, volunteer fire chiefs that we partner with, making them aware of these changes, and also making them aware of how they can get in touch with us and conduct their business. This has been a process that we've been spending a lot of time on over the last 30 days. In fact, when I say a lot of time, I mean a lot of time. It has consumed my time. In fact, today was the first time since January the 1st that I've actually had time to sit at my desk without attending meeting after meeting. While no plan is perfect, I believe that this is a very good start. It's a dynamic process. Our management team is committed and willing to continue to evaluate the reporting structure. We will make adjustments, tweaks as necessary to ensure the effective and efficient role of Union County government and the services that we provide. So with that, that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Commissioners' comments. Commissioner Rape, if you'd like to.
I would like to thank my fellow commissioners. It's been 2 months, starting the third one. I've enjoyed working with all of y'all. I'm really proud of getting to know all the staff. I've told many of them how impressed I am with the way they operate. I've always been proud of living in Union County, but we really do have something good here. I always like to inject a little humor. Michael James, I picked at him. If you remember that show, The Office, Michael is no longer the assistant to the manager, but he's an assistant manager. Dwight Schrute. I couldn't remember Dwight's last name, but he told me, and so, and all the other department heads, it's been a pleasure. Very professional group, and if I wasn't living in Union County, I'd move to Union County. Good night. Thank you.
Commissioner Stimson.
That's hard to top. No further comments. No further comments.
No comments. Good night.
I guess I'd like to congratulate Michelle and Brian and Michael. I've said all along that we've got some extremely talented staff, and they're being recognized, and I'm thankful for that. I look forward to working with a new structure, and I think we've got some great opportunities ahead of us. And we didn't make 8:15, Lynn, but I'll tell you good night and a motion to adjourn, please. Aye. Okay.